Welcome to Brook in the Air. This is our brand new series. Hopefully this will be a better video series in the future. But we're just getting started off here. So it's going to be a little bit of a stressor, a little bit of a video hiccup, if you will. But thank you for bearing with us. Basically, this series we're going to cover various planes, airports, battles, events, things in military and civilian aviation history. Basically what I cover in my blog every week. But in this case, you don't have to read, which is easier for you. And I like the clicks. So, yeah, part of this is for attention, but part of this is also to educate and inform. So, without any further ado, I'm Brooke, this is Brook in the Air, and today we're going over the Brewster F2A-1 and A3 Buffalo. Huh? I hear a lot of you asking? Yeah, well, let me go over that for a second. We'll start by saying the Brewster was probably the U.S. Navy's greatest failure as a fighter aircraft. Without a doubt. By and large, Brewster Aeronautical Corporation does not exist anymore, but back in World War II and just previously, it was an up-and-coming favorite among the aerospace giants. It was huge, it was well-liked, it was reliable, dependable, but with the Buffalo came a huge torrent of failures. It won a fly-off competition, ironically enough, against its eventual successor, the Grumman F4F Wildcat. Now, that was in 1939. At the time, the F4F3 was the XF-1 Wildcat, and it was rather disappointing. The Navy was not thrilled, the Navy was not impressed, the Navy was not overall thrilled by any means. Now, that's not to say they were thrilled with the Buffalo either. As you can see, the Buffalo is short, with stubby wings, thick, wings are thick, has poor overall fuel consumption, and really it has very poor combat range, but it was better than the Wildcat at the time. So the Navy said, yeah, sure, we'll take it. And they approved a pre-production run for 54 planes of the XF-1. Sorry. Yeah, that was a mouthful. With the production variant being the F2A2 and the F2A1. Now, the F2A2 was supposed to be a better variant with a more powerful horsepower engine, over 2,000 horsepower, better propeller, better siege, better combat range, and it was reasonably well liked by a cadre of pilots overall. But the F2A3, which debuted in late 1940, was, well, a step in, many would argue, the wrong direction. It had much poorer fuel consumption, a poor climb rate compared to the original Buffalo, which was not at all that great to begin with, and really, it became known as a flying coffin among the pilots. It was poorly armed. It had one 30 caliber machine gun and one 50 caliber machine gun. Considering its primary enemy of time was the Mitsubishi A6M0, also known as the Ryzen, well, it was basically, every time it went up, it was asking for death at that point. I mean, the Zero was faster, it was sleeker, more agile, more heavily armed. You take a look at this thing, I mean, it's basically a big flying target. Now, the Buffalo did garner its share of fans. I mean, Patty Boynton, in his autobiography, Baba Black Sheep, actually sang the Buffalo's praises to high heaven and back. But, I mean, he was one of very few. The Buffalo eventually was eclipsed by the F4F3 Wildcat. After Grumman had worked out the kinks. Grumman never gave up on Wildcat. Grumman actually went back to the drawing board and said, okay, we're redesigning this with better technology, and from what Brewster has learned from Buffalo. Brewster failed to learn from its failures. Failures, right here. Yeah. And Grumman applied those to its, well, planes. Second. Here we go. Now, this is during one of its test flights, the Buffalo's test flight over NES Miami, which doesn't really exist anymore. Obviously. Here you can kind of make out the rotational speed of the propeller, which you're not supposed to be able to do, but you can kind of make that out just a bit in its turn radius. Here, both these machine guns are mounted in the front cowling, which is good for one, but not for two machine guns of different calibers. Ironically enough, the Finns, the Finnish Air Force at the time, during their winter war against the USSR and the continuing war against the USSR and Nazi Germany in 41 through 45, actually put up a record of 45 combat aces. It was astonishing, really, considering they used the B-239, which was just their numbering system for the Buffalo. It really wasn't any different than ours, but it was amazing, really. They managed to shoot down what was arguably better aircraft, although it did primarily go up against the Soviet's Yak-1, which was comparable in many ways to airspeed, armament, turn rate, climb rate, and dive rate. Now, that doesn't really excuse anything, because when the Buffalo went up against the Messerschmitt Bf-109, it got chopped to pieces. Utterly destroyed, really. It just wasn't a match. The Messerschmitt Bf-109 was arguably one of the best fighters in the entire war. And Messerschmitt truly did himself in that craft. I mean, every substantial variation of the Bf-109 was better than the last. And arguably, they would have won the war if it wasn't for a couple of mitigating factors. So, Future Ace, speaking of aces, we did our own, primarily in the Pacific Theater, where the Buffalo was primarily used. Jimmy Thatch, creator of the Touch Weave and the so-called Big Blue Blanket. Big Blue Blanket, yes. Actually tipped his Buffalo on the USS Essex when he was assigned to Buffalo on the USS Essex in 41. He was not a huge fan of Buffalo because this was a grade A landing, but the Buffalo was too top heavy to really prove his own weight. And see here, the Thatch did it again, actually. He tipped the Buffalo on the couple missions later in Leighton 40 on the Essex, and their only solution was to get him out and tip the plane into the Pacific. I mean, honestly, that's where the Buffalo belonged anyway. But, you know, nevertheless. The Air Forces of the Dutch and all British Commonwealth nations in the South Pacific did fly bravely with their Buffaloes. This is more of ours, but yeah. In the, yeah, there you go. Yeah, RAF Buffaloes. using their self-specific uniforms. They flew bravely against the British Japanese armies and Navy's Ki-43 aircraft and Mitsubishi A6Ms. But it was no avail. They were cut to pieces. The F2A-3 variant of Buffalo was vastly inferior to the F2A-2, as mentioned. It had poor handling, maneuverability, climb rate, pretty much everything you could think of was included in there. Those were initially powered by a 950 horsepower radial engine and upgraded to a 1,250 horsepower engine. And its armament has never really changed. From a 30 caliber, 50 caliber, that's stayed the same. Just two machine guns of arguably inferior quality. The only way you could add armament was to half the ammunition loads and fuel load, which decreases combat effectiveness overall in combat range.
So basically, all that they did was make it suck more?
Essentially, yeah. Their solution was to cut the ammunition in the wings, cut the fuel down by half, and make it a defensive fighter only.
And yet it still got shot down in droves.
To the loss of thousands of airmen, yes. Because at the time, the Mitsubishi A6M was the superiority fighter of the Pacific. Here's the truth for you guys. This is the last surviving Mitsubishi A6M Zero existence today. This is at Yushukan in Yes, Yushukan, the Historical War Museum in Chiyoda in Tokyo.
So basically, we have the comparison of this skinny boy to this chonky boy.
Oh yeah, with two machine guns in the Kelling.
And what? None on the wings?
No. As I said, the Buffalo was equipped with one 50 caliber machine gun and one 30 caliber machine gun.
So you have that going against that, and
that was armed with two 20mm cannons and four 50 caliber machine guns. The cannons were up here, and the 50 cals were here in the wings.
Well, yeah, because it's not like you don't have plenty of extra room in the wings. Oh wait. It
also outnumbered the Buffalo's combat range by a good 450 miles.
Yeah, because wasn't the Zero mostly made out of wood?
Yeah, it was entirely wood with aluminum plating.
So you're dealing with
this was a wooden fuselage with aluminum plating on the side, and the only truly metal partition of the fuselage was the propeller. And the engine, obviously.
And then this was, what, basically entirely made out of aluminum?
Aluminium, yeah. Ironically, it's easier to say in the British pronunciation. And titanium and steel struts.
Wait, so they were using titanium as well, just a little bit? Jeez. And also, comparatively speaking, the tires look like they would be a lot easier damaged on the Buff than the Zero.
Oh yeah.
They're more exposed.
The Buffalo was not originally capable of carrier landing.
Hence why stuff like that happened and that happened.
Oh yeah, because they had jury-rig and Tokyo on it.
So just to make sure I have this right, the U.S. Navy, the pride of whatever the heck you say, had to jury-rig stuff so they could fight a war.
Oh yeah. Until 1943, our naval air forces were largely ad hoc and had no idea what they were doing.
So pretty much the Buffalo should have actually been on this.
Yeah, a nice, flat, solid ground covered by grasslands. Yeah. And this was in, oh gosh, Thailand.
Where the buffalo's tricycle mount, or what I would say reverse tricycle mount, did better in the mud.
Oh yeah, because I mean, as a ground fighter, it wasn't like as an overland fighter, an army fighter, it wasn't too bad. It wasn't good by any means, but it wasn't too bad. However, compared to the Hawker Hurricane and Submarine Spitfire, it was terrible.
Could it at least absorb more damage?
Oh god, no.
So then, why didn't they replace it immediately with the Wildcat?
Because they didn't have enough Wildcats available. Wildcats didn't become fully available in mass numbers until mid-43. At that time, the Hellcat was already in prototype testing, but wouldn't enter full service until, early 44.
And of course, these are the same crazy people who decided to build. Hold on, let me get the monstrosity. Oh, not that one. Sorry, you guys, trying to get a picture of the wonderful, glorious Buccaneer. Since it's made by the same. Yeah, that thing.
Yeah.
Like, seriously.
They tried to make up for the Buffalo with this. And this was intended by them to replace the Douglas SPG Dauntless Dive Bomber.
Which was actually decent.
It was. The SPDs were supposed to be replaced by the Avenger torpedo plane. Overall. But, which was supposed to do both dive bombing and torpedo bombing. However, the SPD was so beloved by pilots, it maintained itself in service until the end of the war. This piece of shit was terrible. Oh my god. It was supposed
How terrible was it?
So, it's dive brakes here, where both planes have flaps as dive brakes. Good in theory, and Douglas, the SPD illustrated that they could be used in mass correctly.
And the Junkers from the Germans really illustrated it.
The Ju-88. They put out more than just Ju-88.
Right.
But yeah.
Or, sorry, Stukas.
The Stuka, yes.
Stukas used them to terrifying effect, didn't they?
Yeah. But this one had a lower dive speed, a lower bomb or release speed. This bombs were primarily under the wings. Why you would mount bombs under the wings on a dive bomber is on me.
So they could blow their load all at once?
Haha. It was supposed to mount one 1,200-pound torpedo in here.
Oh, so they tried to make it multi-use for both torpedoes and bombs.
Yeah. It was supposed to be a torpedo plane and a dive bomber.
I mean, I hate to say it, but we haven't gotten a McNamara yet, so calm down, guys. We'll discuss that in another time.
It was supposed to be able to carry crew of 3 like Japanese did.
So, a pilot, a radioman, and a rear gunner.
No. An aircraft commander, a pilot, and a gunner / bombardier.
Wait, so the rear gunner also did bombardier duty?
Mm-hmm.
So, did they have a secondary bomb release thing?
Yeah. Technically.
That would. What do you mean technically?
As in it wasn't really used.
Was it in another position?
What do you mean?
Well, you've got the rear gunner firing like mad, so much that he can't sight the bomb on when to release
Oh no,
it.
the pilot would sight the bomb, then the gunner would release. It was supposed to be an early incarnation of crew resource management.
Okay, why didn't they get the aircraft commander something to do? The aircraft commander is sitting right in the middle, doing God knows what.
That's another reason why this wasn't put in mass production. Because they didn't want anything that would be close to what the Japanese had.
You all can't see me, but I'm blinking very fast because it's so stupid. Mind you, this is the same people who decided to use pigeons for bombs and bats, but we'll get that.
So, and also the rear wheel here, which was, and I thought many planes had it, but it normally the rear wheel could be raised up to here. No, not in the Buccaneer. No, that was just too young.
So if the rear wheel got shut off, you basically destroy the tail of the plane.
Yep. Now this was not put into full production. This was kept in limited numbers for rear guard and homeland defense duty and training.
So, and in retrospect, going back to the Brewster for a second.
The Buffalo.
Yeah, I'm bringing this up for a reason.
No, yes, this is one of my favorite parts.
So here, we have the comparison of this to that.
This is the Curtiss Aircraft Corporation's P-40D Warhawk, also known as the Tucker Hawk, the Kitty Hawk, the Tomahawk, depending on what nation uses it, and as soon as it gets a...
And basically the Flying Tiger, wasn't it?
No. It was used by the Flying Tigers.
Right. Hold on. I'm trying to put them side to side so we can see the sheer shenanigan level of this.
So we have the Buffalo here, and we have the Warhawk over here. The Warhawk is typically, or was typically, equipped with 450 caliber machine guns, outgunning the Buffalo by at least 4 to 1.
I mean, the Brewster even looks like a chonky boy. I mean, look at it. You've got the air intake on the Warhawk. You've got the fact that the propeller's actually protected.
Yeah, the fact that the Warhawk actually predates the Buffalo by about a year in production.
Oh, yes, yeah. The Warhawk was the old guy.
And yet, it also was faster than the Buffalo by about 300 miles per hour. Had a better climb rate, a better dive rate, a better turn and maneuverability rate overall.
Well, the Brewster doesn't even look like it's very aerodynamic.
It's not. Though the Zero could fly circles around it. And to add credence to this point, when Claire Chennault's Flying Tigers had the option of switching their P-40s to the F2As, they had a competition between themselves in their P-40s and the RAF in the F2A-3s, and the F2A-3s were metaphorically blown out of the sky. And Chennault's boys said, we'll stick with the P-40.
Yeah, it's... I mean, I know the picture aspect ratio might be off, but still.
Not by too much. These are roughly the same size. That's what it's shown here. Overall, the Flying Tigers P-40s were, and we'll do a full episode of P-40 in the future.
Well, the P-40s, and didn't they also use the P-51 Mustangs after a while?
No, they didn't.
What else did they just use? Warhawks?
Warhawks.
They did have that. They just used Warhawks, right? I thought they used something else.
They used Yak-3s for a while.
They used the Yak-3s.
As inspiration because they had no other moving planes.
But, yeah, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
So the P-40 was actually, the Flying Tigers were actually jury-rigged, and they were customized to ridiculous degrees because they were not stock planes. They were shipped to essentially what was then known as China at the time anyway.
And then lost.
Yes, and then put together by the pilots by hand in order to fly against the Japanese, which enabled them to pretty much hold their own for years.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but just looking at the planes, I keep staring at it. Where is the exhaust on the Buffalo?
It comes out of a small nodule over here in the rear of the plane. So everything is fed through the rear of the fuselage, back and scored up the back.
Why?
Because Brewster thought it was smart.
So they basically use the same style as a car exhaust.
Yeah.
Whereas the Warhawk just went, you know what, we're just going to shove it out immediately. With, of course, what is that? 10 nozzles total?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12. 6 each side.
12. So, and on top of that, it had a huge air intake allowing for the engine to work better.
And by the end of the war, the Warhawks were largely decommissioned, but the ones that were in service were very advanced.
Right, they were on, what, the Fs by then?
M's.
M's, thank you. Let's see if we got any. Nope, still no questions. So I guess I'll ask something.
Alright.
Okay,
We'll open the floor to questions.
yeah. So for those of us who are not, who don't know this very well, so how many rounds were in the, well, here, let's get up one more thing, because we're going to do a try comparison. So, since we're going to do a little trifecta comparison here, boys and girls, we promise we'll have this done better next time.
This is a learning experience.
Well, it's a learning experience plus a first time. So, we have
The Brewster Buffalo, the Curtis Warhawk P40, and the Mitsubishi A6M0.
I mean, we could probably throw a picture of the Messerschmitt in here.
We don't want to get too crowded
to do a
here.
quad comparison, but let's just pretend you can see the Messerschmitt, because seriously, you all have Google. We're doing this on YouTube, so just Google ME109. It'll be fine.
BF199 essentially at this point.
So, what was the amount of guns on each one? Let's start with the Warhawk.
Warhawk had 4 50 caliber machine guns,
Brewster Buffalo,
1 30 caliber machine gun, and 1 50 caliber machine gun.
0.
2 20mm cannons and 4 50 caliber machine guns.
And the ME109?
4 20mm cannons and 2 50 caliber machine guns.
So, let me see if I understand this correctly. The Americans won, even though for a lot of the time they were undergunned, at least in the very beginning.
Luck. Some skill, a lot of luck.
Well,
And a tenacious capacity for mass production.
and thank goodness that the Americans only had the Warhawk and the Brewster Buffalo at the beginning.
Well, yeah, I mean, arguably, at the beginning of World War II, the Americans were unprepared for war. Unprepared, outgunned, outnumbered, and outmatched.
Whereas the Germans had redonkulous amounts.
Ever since Adolf Hitler was elected Chancellor of Germany,
He
was
took control of the country, yes.
he started a mass production campaign to rearm Germany for the German people. And he built up the Luftwaffe, he built up the Wehrmacht, formerly the Heer, and now the Heer again. And he built up the Kriegsmarine to tremendous proportions. He basically took the Treaty of Versailles and went, no.
I thought he lit it on fire after stabbing it multiple times.
Pretty much did, but
And the Japanese were basically tired of being, well, kicked around.
well, the Japanese were growing ever increasingly arrogant ever since their win against the Russians in 1904.
And then they decided to say, we want all of the East.
Well, they needed the East, first of all, for oil. And they're going to ask us for oil, but we embargoed them ever since they invaded French Indochina.
Because I believe they invaded French Indochina for rubber.
For rubber, and for wood, and for other natural resources. They believed fully in Asia ruled by Asians. They basically didn't think we would have a problem with it, considering we believed in manifest destiny.
But but because it wasn't us doing the Manifest Destiny roar.
Right. See, it's not that they ignored us. No, very much the contrary. They were very much aware of what we thought as a nation, and they were confident that we would approve of their conquestorial aims, their ambition.
We're going to go a little bit off tangent here. Of course, we already are kind of, just to hopefully that some of you listen to us and talk to us. So basically, both the Japanese and the Germans took lessons from the Americans.
Oh yeah. Adolf Hitler looked at the way we treated slaves for 400 years and went, that's a good idea. I could apply that to Jews.
And the same thing with the Japanese and the Chinese.
Oh, the Japanese hated Chinese. And they basically looked to China and went, oh, they're inferior people, we can rule them. And they basically conquered Manchuria, turned into Manchukuo, as a first step in their conquest of China. What they did to Manchukuo, they want to do to all Chinese provinces.
And getting back to the airplanes, whether it was the Zero, the Kate, or any of the other ones, it was basically a wood body with aluminum covering, right? Because they didn't have very many metal.
The Kate, for one thing, that was an interesting example. The Kate was their primary dive bomber that was primarily aluminum and steel construction, because speed was not concerned with dive bombers at all.
Well, and the weight actually helped.
And the weight helped, and what was needed for the Kate was to get up high, travel to the target, and then dive from 20,000 feet up.
So the same thing, roughly, they took their idea from the Stuka?
More to say, the Stuka took their idea from the Kate, and then the Kate, in subsequent variations, was applied from previous lessons. They all took lessons from each other, essentially, but they never admit that.
So, did the Americans have a dedicated dive bomber besides the Avenger?
Yeah, the SVD Dauntless. The Douglas Corporation's SVD Dauntless, aka Slow But Deadly.
Let's see, do we have a picture of that? I don't think we do. No, that's
The SVD Dauntless was amazing for a plane. It could even dogfight. Not well, but it could dogfight when it had to. And it could take a beating. It could withstand repeated machine gun strikes and cannon rounds without going down. It could carry upwards of an 1,800-pound warhead, and could easily penetrate most.
Oh yeah, for our discussions that we were talking about earlier, the Junker.
No, that's a Prius.
Well, yeah, we were talking about the Junker earlier.
There is no Junker. There is the Junkers. Stuka.
But yeah. Oh yeah, that's off the bomber vlog that we did.
Yeah. Yeah, we have more planes coming in the future, but this is a discussion about the Buffalo primarily. But as you can see, the Buffalo ties into the evolution of aircraft as a whole. Now, granted, not every aircraft is going to be a winner at all, but the Brewster Buffalo was a huge loser. If we had stuck with the Buffalo as a primary aircraft, it would have failed us so much and so hard. But the Navy retired the Buffalo in 1941, primarily by 43. By 43, the Buffalo was retired fully, and we had a Wildcat in full service with just about every carrier air squadron from San Diego to Honolulu and beyond. And by late in 43, we had the Hellcat coming online. The Hellcat, by far, was unprecedented for a naval fighter, and was nearly unbeatable.
Regarding our earlier discussion, Obsidian Jaguar mentioned that Hitler also looked at the treatment of the American Indian nations and thought it was a good idea.
That's very true. That's very true. Many people don't cover that. He looked at the treatment of the Native nations and went, you know, I could go a step further.
And he kind of did, because I know we're bouncing around a little bit on question time, but he pretty much followed the reservation thing when he made the internment camps, right?
Yeah, and there were some 290 odd internment camps, and about at least 8 confirmed death camps around Nazi Germany in the general government area.
And the closest we got to death camps here in America, I believe, when it came to the Native Americans, was good old Andrew Jackson, wasn't it?
Yeah, Andrew Jackson. We don't like talking about him too much, for good reason, because he's the only person so far that we've elected to as mass murderer.
And proud of it.
And proud of it, yes. During World War II, we of course had the internment camps for Japanese Americans.
Which, fun fact, many of you actually know somebody on TV who was in internment camps.
Hikaru Suzu.
Mm-hmm.
A.k.a. George Takei. Yes.
George Takei was in an internment camp for how many years?
Like 12 years or something like that.
Yeah. We'll have to check into that, but I believe she is correct. It is 12 years.
Yeah. Now, a lot of the internment campsites, of course, are nothing but faint, distant memories. There are a couple monuments to internment camps that have been set up, but overall, they're a memory and relic of our past that we would like to forget, but we never will. At least those of us who study history.
I'm not going to touch on the things we don't want to forget.
Yeah.
Because that'll start us in a whole big political discussion that's going to be on probably one of my rants.
But, the Hellcat, when it came out in 1943, was unparalleled, and the Japanese would never have anything that compared to it. They had the rating later on, but that never got anything more than a defense fighter, really. And from then on, the Hellcat would achieve almost unparalleled success between that and the Corsair. Now, fun fact, the Corsair, the Vought F4U, was flown exclusively by U.S. Marine Corps personnel, whereas the Hellcat was flown by U.S. Naval personnel. Now, the Corsair could be landed and flown off of land airfields. The Hellcat was exclusive to carriers.
Because the Corsair was the one with foldable wings, right?
Wings.
Yeah, wasn't there one with foldable wings?
They all have foldable wings.
Okay.
Except for the Buffalo, which did not.
Well, didn't we also have to rebuild our carriers after the Buffalo?
We had to replace a couple of the escort carriers' flat tops. But it wasn't until 1943 or so that our production really ramped up as far as shipyards especially, and we started putting innumerable amounts of escort carriers and fleet carriers into action. But there will always be the treasure few, like the Enterprise, the Hornet, the Yorktown, the Lexington, the Essex.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Essex class of escort carrier would serve until at least the 60s.
Well, yeah, because we didn't want to decommission anything because it costs more sometimes to decommission than it costs to build.
Sometimes, yeah. Although, this is a slight segue, the cost of decommissioning a conventional carrier is nothing compared to the cost of decommissioning a nuclear carrier.
Well, yeah, but we can just put that somewhere in a container and forget about it, like we do in Washington State.
Oh, Hanford, anyone? Yeah. No, it costs somewhere in the realm of $3 to $4 billion to decommission a Nimitz-class carrier, whereas it costs $68 million to decommission, say, a Kitty Hawk-class conventional carrier.
But just from America.
Difference between the CD and a CDN. But that is all for today.
If you guys have questions later on, after watching this, she will try and answer them as best she can. She always keeps an eye on it.
Yep.
We're going to do a couple of them before starting to take requests on subjects, or
yeah,
we always just shove in requests?
I mean, if we have any requests, we'll take them into consideration. If not, I have a line of topics queued up.
Yep. And most of the topics are going to follow what's on her website. That's usually a pretty good benchmark.
Yep.
If it's covered in the written blog, this is when she gets on here and talks about it. If anybody has any suggestions for the studio as well, modifications, this is kind of a pirate operation, so using what we have.
Just kind of strung together, slapped together, thrown around. Sort of like the Millennium Falcon.
Another thing from City and Jaguar. What's interesting is how in 1943 Military Aviation Journal said, wait a sec, let's try this. Like with the development of the Aleutian Sturmovik, yeah, you should put a rear gun on that. Well, why did they put a rear gun on stuff?
Primarily, the Sturmovik was a ground attack aircraft, of course. It was not meant for, like, dogfighting or air superiority by any means. Here.
Well,
and
why put a rear gun?
I'm getting there. So, the Sturmovik, while it had heavy armor, needed additional protection. So they figured the best way of protecting the aircraft overall was to put a rear gun on the back of it. Now, this also necessitated putting a extra gunner in the cockpit, which would further weight in the plane with the ammunition and the gun and the pilot and the gunner. But this was regarded as a fair trade-off because they also increased power of the engine.
But speaking of the Sturmovik, is that the right one? Or
No,
okay.
The IL-2.
IL-2. Okay, I know that's in here.
This is a bomber.
Right. Okay, it must be. Yeah, I think you got a picture of the Sturmovik on.
No, you don't.
No, you don't. Don't you have one on the website?
I might on the website, but not here.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry. Thought we had a picture of the Sturmovik, but we don't.
Fun fact, Sturmovik just means, it's just Russian for a ground attack aircraft. It's not the actual nickname. It never had an actual nickname. Although pilots may have called it a bunch of derisive things not suitable for flight conversation.
But another reason they put the gun in the rear is because it was mostly meant for slower planes so they wouldn't get shot in the butt because they couldn't turn as fast, right?
Well, sort of. But, I mean, for any plane that was even remotely slow, I mean, a gunner wasn't going to fix that problem. But it did shut a lot of people up. It shut critics up, especially when we put rear guns in the backseat of the side bomber. Those were only the Twin 30 Hells, but they didn't really do much good, but they still got people to shut up because they figured, okay, at this point they have protection.
So basically it was security theater.
Yeah, essentially.
When all it really gave
And
was...
they were playing theater with people's lives. Because basically, in the Dalton Side Bomber, you had a communications officer normally, and then when combat came around, the gunner would turn around, you'd pull out the gun, mount it, bracket it, load it, chamber it, and prepare to fire, and he'd hit Twin 30 caliber mounts.
And try not to shoot the tail off the plane.
Usually, yeah.
Because that joking thing that happened in Indiana Jones.
Can happen.
Oh, it did happen a lot in the very beginning when people were rookies, didn't it?
Yeah, but that's the whole point of U.S. Naval Gunnery School. To learn how to properly shoot your gun. People don't realize that. They think, oh, you just go out and shoot a gun. No. You have to learn the proper aspects of, especially as a rear gunner, getting your gun ready, chambering, loading, locking, and getting it ready to fire, and then firing, depressing the trigger, firing.
And learning how to lead.
Lead, and yeah. Because you want to fire poorly. There were a few gunners who succeeded in downing enemy aircraft. There weren't many, but there were a few.
And that was specifically the rear gunners, whereas the front gunners already had to deal with the other part of...
The front gunners were also pilots.
Right.
And bombers.
Right, but I'm touching on the actual history of it, where in especially World War I, pilots had been known because they didn't have the propeller and the gun synced. They would shoot through their propellers sometimes.
That was fixed very quickly.
Well, yeah, usually.
That's the whole purpose of a prototype and testing stage.
Well, yeah, but that is when you kind of have pilots dying in a war. That's something that usually gets fixed pretty quickly.
It was fixed so fast that it's not even worth talking about because it was fixed in the development stage. I mean, even the Buffalo, with all its problems, never once shot its propeller off because they had everything synced to where the gun would fire through the propeller blades and it would be synced. That's like fundamental 101 of building any World War II era propeller plane.
Yeah. But is that everything, or do you have anybody to thank? Like other channels that bless you.
No, excuse me.
Other channels that have this kind of good information as well that you would direct people to?
Yeah, Rex's Hangar, for one thing, has a very, very good overall overviews, essentially. Especially for long-form formats. It's especially good for that. Once again, that's Rex's Hangar. Just type that in on YouTube, it'll come right up. Drucknefell, very good. For warships, everything naval especially. Again, the long form, we're talking 2, 3, or 4 hour segments. Videos a lot better than mine. And of course, if you just want like clips by comparison, I would recommend any of the Dark series, like Dark Docks, Dark Seas, Dark Footage, Dark Skies. Dark Skies especially. They're all by the same team. Very good series. For travel vlogs, I would recommend Vicarious Voyager. I'll put some of the links below when I post this. Trek Trendy is very good. A little conceited at some points, but very good overall. I really can't complain. Will does amazing work. And of course, Luxury Travel Expert. Doesn't do any real voiceovers on his videos. Doesn't have to. Has great stuff laid out. All his videos are excellently cataloged. He does flight reviews, travel videos, resort reviews. Everything I hope to do in the future, he does. But then again, no.
And then, of course, for hilarious military history, there's always the Fat Electrician.
No, we're not going to. No.
Oh, we're live, but yeah. Anyway, so yeah. All in all, I mean, what do you think we're going to cover next time?
Next time might be another Blast from the Past, or might be something more recent. I'm thinking next time might be something more, a little more advantageous, a little more thrilling, like say, maybe the McDonnell Douglas F4 Phantom. That might be thrilling, so I might do that.
Or, you know, we could cover the Tomcat.
In time.
Alright.
Alright, that's my vlog. Alright, I will see y'all in the air. Please check out my site and my vlog for more travel and history and aviation videos. Until next time, Brooks in the air, signing off.
And we're done. Alright. So, how'd you feel about it?
Not bad overall. Not bad.
Had about 2 or 3 people come in. Only person to say anything was Obsidian Jaguar.
He's on my Facebook friends list.
I'm not sure if it was streaming to Facebook Live. But I did happen to post as soon as you started. Like one of the times when you were snapping at me, that's when I was doing it.
Alright. Oh, that's good.
And I thought I heard her calling, but it was actually the chair moving.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it won't be picked up too much. Okay, I'll go add this downstairs. Put this in.
Well, it's already put in. It was straight live.
I have to edit it.
Oh.
On the channel.
Okay. Yeah, it's It's only 3:30, by the way.
Riding along, doing nothing wrong.
Yes.
I forgot my phone.
How dare you?
There's a city tree thing downstairs.
He always is. Alright, I'm going to go in here to videos and... Careful. Okay. And I'm going to cut this from here, the recording, and drop it over onto the server network.
Great.
It's going to be in Rook Vacation Videos streams if you want to edit the recording to post it on your website.
I don't know why I do that. I want everything to redirect my YouTube.
Okay, well,
Except for my vlogs.
YouTube is live, so